welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker, and we're going to be looking at a tea today, and to really kind of understand how this tea came to be, it helps to know a little bit about history. And there's always an aspect of if you want, when you really want to get into something like wines, like teas, like coffee, whatever your hobby is, you find that background helps you to find things that build an interesting story around something. So with this black tea, we're going to be talking a little bit about the story and mostly, of course, about the tea itself. And to do that, I'm going to be using my Gaiwan. This is the Chinese style. Again, another aspect of kind of the history of tea, a traditional way of preparing teas in China. Now, I'm going to take out this inner package just because it's easier to serve. And I'm not even really going to need my spoon. This is about a 4-ounce Gaiwan, and I'm going to shake out enough of this black tea to really just kind of cover the bottom, say 1.5 inch diameter of the bottom surface. I don't want to see a lot of the bottom of the bowl here, and that looks like that covers it pretty well. These are larger size, kind of wiry leaves. And as I was saying, this is a tea from Taiwan, a black tea, and a lot of black teas really came into Taiwan at a time when the Japanese occupied Taiwan and wanted a location where they could create and have their own black teas. Green teas were easy enough to get in the islands of Japan, but they needed a better climate, a better temperature for growing and creating black tea. So they introduced black tea or varieties of tea that do well as black teas into Taiwan. Now, this particular tea, let's talk about it for a moment. This is Rishi teas. This is their HongYue, which can be translated as, it's described as jade or red jade, I should say, or red ruby, something like that. You can find 50 grams of this HongYue for $11. And as I was talking about that background, that helps you to kind of understand this is an introduction or a cross between, I should say, of a wild Burmese, Southeast Asian, often does well as a black tea, with a wild Taiwanese tea. There are wild Taiwanese teas growing in the mountains there in Taiwan, and this one is grown in the area of the Nantou Valley or Nantou community in Taiwan. And we're going to be talking a little bit about this tea. Looking at it, it comes from a fairly small garden. You may want to note if organic practices are important to you. You think and you feel that you want to find that teas that are clean and pure. Don't always simply look for the organic symbols. Other things to consider are with small farms like the ones where this particular tea comes from. They're not large enough to really cover the cost yet of the added expenses of going through an organic certification, but they often use organic processes. They may be also as an element of cutting costs. They may not use pesticides or use very few, or use other organic alternatives. They may use plants that grow between the rows of the tea bushes that will aerate the soil, add nutrients to the soil. Those are aspects that can help with the organic, the organic aspects without actually being certified organic. So let's talk about this tea for a moment. First, now it came sealed inside this inner pouch, so I'm just going to take this out for convenience sake, because we are going to talk about the dry leaf, the wet leaf, and the liquor. First off, I'm noticing the aromas, and there are some strong aromatic components of this, including there's a kind of camphor, a kind of menthol type cooling smell that's coming off of this. But aside from that, there's also a kind of a sweet, rich, I don't know if herby is the right word, but to me it comes out as if you've ever smelled a damp, moist tobacco product. There's something kind of sweet and pungent about this. So you combine that kind of camphor cooling with that sweetness of like a tobacco leaf. Those are the dominant elements here. Looking at this leaf, as I mentioned already before, these are wiry. They're dark. We're talking, they're talking about brown gray colors. So there's, and the lengths of these leaves, you're getting leaves that are, an inch or two, up to 2 inches, sometimes 3 inches. Single leaves, kind of twisted and wrapped along the middle vein of the leaf. So you're getting clues about individual leaves here. They're not any kind of delicate type buds or tips. These are fuller leaves. They're going to have more of that black tea oxidation in them. So let's get ready to pour then and look at our wet leaf. And I've got out my pitcher so that I can present that in a nice pitcher, hold it up to the light, serve it if I wanted to, or if you're tasting tea with others, you can serve it more easily in a pitcher like this. Now I'm going to put my lid over to the side a little bit, make a nice gap so I can pour smoothly. There we go. Get those last few drops. Of course, the bottom of a steeped pot or gallon like this has thicker, stronger liquor. The top is thinner, and so when you have to consider that when you pour or when you serve, that the first person who gets the first pour off the top may get a thinner or lighter cup. Let's talk about this aroma. You may have noticed I smell inside the lid and I smell down in the bowl. And what's interesting is that you can actually get different aromas depending on what and where you smell. So, like when I smell down into the bowl itself, I still get a lot of that camphor, that type of cooling aspect. But when I get into the lid, I get more of a brown sugar. I can get some kind of a red jujube or a date kind of smell coming off of that. Probably a little bit more of the jujube type note coming off of there. So it's sweet to think rich, kind of meaty, deep red fruits. I would lean even a little bit over towards like a nice rich red grape. There's a little bit of that coming out. More so in the lid, actually. Looking at these leaves, though, they have become loosened. They've loosened up. They've become more of a lighter, or more of a reddish brown. And you're also seeing that these are larger leaves. I generally see larger leaves, especially associated with like those the Southeast Asian, that Burmese aspect that was mentioned before. Okay, larger leaves varietals. They are a little bit thicker. They're not necessarily leathery. They're not. They're still pretty delicate. They'll still tear pretty easily. So it's not the toughest, roughest leaf that you'll ever find, though, either. But then again, it's not as green. It's not as delicate as a green tea. Let me pull out just one more. See if I can find something a little bit. I'll do that one because they do not, given the steep time that we had, they did not all fully unfurl. So that's a positive note. There's still more to be had in subsequent steepings. That's worth noting. So I'll put that there. Now, moving on to really look at our liquor here. And kind of get some of that steam off the side there. I like that it's got a nice bright color. That's one of the first things I note. It does have a reddish brown type color. Good brightness. I'm getting that camphor note. Is one of the first things again. That one just really hits your nose and just wakens it up. More than the others. You have to kind of let that pass through, and then before you can work through and get to those other notes here. Again, some of the jujube, that red date kind of note coming out, combined again. Still, my nose pull detects it as registers it as like a sweet tobacco type. Yours may go into more. You may register it more as kind of a fruity aspect. Again, deep red type fruits. All right, let's give it a pour here. And again, good clarity as you look down through the cup as well. So let's give it a taste. Now, what I find with a lot of Taiwanese black teas is that they don't have they're not known, let's say like a Darjeeling or an Assam, for being, extra bold, lots of heavy astringency or hard briskness to them. They have, again, they're mellower. They've got a little bit more of the smoothness. They've got still those, in that range of flavors that I just talked about, a little bit of the cooling of the camphor or menthol type. They've got still some of the brown, sugary, sweet, whether that be sweet wet tobacco or that jujube type fruit, and that's more of after you've eaten a dry jujube, and you're getting some of that residual taste that's coming out. That's what you taste as the tea is resting there on your tongue. The body, and taste. The body is light brothy. It's not thin or watery by any means. It's not as thick as or heavy as a Taiwanese oolong either. So it's smooth in that sense. There's something almost on the tongue. It almost feels a little bit salty even. There's something kind of that just reacts on the tongue and makes it feel like you've just sipped on lightly salty water. So there's that aspect to it as well. The aftertaste gives some of the black tea tannin kind of notes, brown sugar, what comes to my mind or my tongue is kind of a baked bean type of brown sugar element there in the back, baked bean. It kind of falls. It remains, like I said, sweet. Still the jujube type of sweetness coming out there. And so when I look at this tea as a whole, I find this tea to be pretty rounded. It's got some good components to it. It's not harsh or rough. It doesn't fade off or become weak in any areas. So I would have to give this tea pretty high marks. I would give this tea a 91. It's got some smooth characteristics. Like I said, it doesn't go off on the deep end or it doesn't go in any wrong directions either. So it's good. If a Taiwanese black is new to you, this may be something to consider. It's not. I try to avoid overly cooling, overly menthol type. That just overpower. This one has some of that menthol, yet it stays in balance with the other components, and so that's why another reason why I would score it pretty well. So come back to Walker Tea Review, where we can. I hope you are able to share some of your background, and we're able to find out more about backgrounds of teas together as we watch and learn together.